Hi, folks. Welcome back. Those of you that are new, welcome. What a hell of a game. A hell of a game. This is from the next to the last round. I believe it's round 9 of the FIDE Grand Swiss 2023, played in Isle of Man. What a beautiful place. And this is between two names that, from the chess world, that everyone knows. Hikaru Nakamura from the United States, who has a huge presence on social media, Twitch, as well as YouTube and many other platforms, millions of subscribers, just a dynamic player. And Fabiano Caruana, also from the United States, former world championship challenger. Fabiano is rated 2786. Hikaru is rated 2780. These are the top in the world. I believe Caruana is number 2 in the world, and I believe Nakamura might be 3 or 4. So this is an amazing game. And this is for all the marbles. You have to remember something. Caruana is already qualified for the candidates. And those of you that don't know what that is, that's the tournament that's played. It's kind of like a playoff. I believe it's an 8-player round robin. Everybody plays everybody once. And the winner of that tournament challenges the current world champion. So this is a big deal. But Fabiano is already qualified for the candidates. Hikaru hasn't. So keep that in the back of your mind as you're watching this. Now, let's take a look. It's going to be a 4 nights, which you don't see a lot, but it's starting to come back in favor. With the advent of computers, a lot of these old, somewhat, they say, boring lines are coming back, but they're not so boring. Let's just go through some of the opening here, and that's why they call it the 4 nights. You see the 4 nights out there. And it's D4. It's kind of like a weird Scotch in a way. E takes, knight takes. Bishop goes to B4, pinning the knight. And rather than black with the bishop, which would lose the knight, you just exchange the knight. You don't take with the D pawn because it'll be queen takes queen. And then it starts getting hairy. B takes, bishop D3. This is all theory. Reason why I'm going through it fast. D5. And these guys played this instantly. They know it by heart. The thing is, though, these guys prepare. And Hikaru said later, as he was analyzing the game, that he didn't expect this. So these guys prepare very hard. It's hard to remember everything. I don't care how young you are or how talented you are. You can't remember everything. So you have to prepare just before the game. And this is one of the lines he did not prepare for. But he knew it well enough. Black castles, white castles, pawn takes, H3. You really and truly don't want this bishop here. You really don't want it there. It's a pain in the behind, and this knight is guarding it. It gets you a tempo on the queen, and at the same time, you get a piece developed. And on top of that, even if it was true, the queen would have to move here or here and be in a pin against the bishop, and nobody wants that. So bishop b6, that's why he went pawn there, so the bishop can't come in. Queen to f3, and that's the real spot in the 4 knights that you really want for the queen anyway, and that's one of the major reasons why Hikaru went h3. I have the computer off screen, tiny advantage for white. You might as well call it even. If you can be on move 11 at this level and black is even with white, that's pretty good. c5, here come the pawns. Rook to d1. Bishop takes, pawn takes. Now, I'm not real keen on that. I have this, what do I call it? Double pawn, isolated pawn phobia. But it's probably cost me games because I've done things and made moves that aren't that great just to avoid double pawns. I got to get over that. Queen a5, right away. Fabiano is black, is going right after the isolated pawn on c3. Bishop g5, going after the knight's going to screw up black's pawns as well if bishop takes, exposing the king. So Fabiano moves the knight, which is now attacking the bishop on, dark squared bishop on g5. So Carl decides, let's take. And he doesn't really take. He doesn't take the pawn. He can get that later. I don't think it's a good idea because if this... Well, let's go through a scenario here. Queen takes. Maybe even queen takes. Rook here. With a discovery against the queen. A lot of bad things can happen. So Carl decided, you know, I'll just move queen here, which I wanted the king anyway. And of course, and now the threat is he's guarding this pawn. And at the same time, he's threatening this, which will cause him to move the pawn, and bishop will take the rook and he'll win the exchange. So Fabiano has to just move the king. A4, just to get some space. Rook F to E8, which I thought was interesting. It's one of those deals if you're a chess player and you have two rooks like that, and then you go to analyze your game later in a computer, the computer always picks the other rook that you picked every time. It's the damnedest thing. But that is the top move. In fact, the top move is F6, and I agree with that. But the second best move, and a close second, is rook A to B8 or rook A to C8. So he went there. It's a little miss, but it's not that bad. Rook to D6. So Carl's going right for the juggler here. He wants to double up his rooks and cause some mayhem on the black king. Now, if you see the white queen, or excuse me, the black queen here, she's stuck out in the middle of nowhere. She's nowhere near the defense of the black king. And white's pieces are going to start swarming pretty soon. Black's got to do something. Black goes 8-6 to chase the bishop off. Now, it would be incredibly tempting to go bishop takes, pawn takes, queen here. That'd be very tempting, but it's a little too early for that. So he backs off the bishop. Rook to E7. He wants to double up the rooks as well. Queen to E3. Really good move. Now, right now, it's a small advantage for white, less than a pawn. But you can see the attack is developing here. The queen bishop battery against black's H-pawn. White's going to put his A rook on D1 and double up. It's coming. It's coming. It's just a matter of how is black going to respond. Black decides to guard the pawn with rook to C8. Probably to thinking I'll move the queen and the pawn, the black pawn on C5 will still be guarded. Now, what would you do here? It's extremely tempting to play bishop takes 8-6. And after, you can't play pawn takes because queen will take and you're screwed. You're screwed. This rook's going to come over, then come up and come across, and the attack is on. And even if worst case scenario is with some of the checks, is when you start getting checks, you pick up the odd bishop here or there. You pick up the bishop with the checks from here diagonally. So it's a tough call. And Akaro sat there. I watched this live. And Akaro sat there for quite a while before he did anything. And he finally pulled the trigger, and he went bishop takes. Now, if you play pawn takes, you're doomed. Let's give you an idea here. If pawn takes, it's over. Queen takes. King has to go here, only move. Queen goes to G5 check. The king has to go to F8 to guard the rook. And he's doomed. He's absolutely doomed. Queen goes here, threatening mate. The only way out of it is to move this rook here. Now watch. This is beautiful. Queen checks. What are you going to do? You go to G8, rook goes to E1, you're going to lose. So we'll say we'll go here. Rook takes pawn. He's screwed. Absolutely screwed. And it's he's going to be chased. We'll see. We'll take this. And then you go queen here, check. He's forced out in the open. And then you bring the other rook. Now remember, you're down a rook, but it's not going to matter. Because after king c6, it's queen to d7. And it's mate in 2. King b6. Rook d6 check. All the pieces are swarming now. And when he blocks with a rook, there's 2 ways to mate. That's the prettier one. Mate.
Mate.
So let's go back. So now you know why you can't take the bishop. So after bishop takes h6, now these guys figured all that out. These guys are world-class players. They just have this sense of danger that they know what's wrong. And he might not have put it all the way through the mate at the end, but he saw whatever it was bad. So he says, no, I want no part of that. And the computer likes rook to d7. And that's where he, I shouldn't say blundered, but misstepped badly. Rook to d7 is the computer's choice. And is that tough to find? Not really. But I think Caruana was a little spooked, to be honest with you. Because we're on move 21. And, it's... So anyway, he played. He didn't take. Queen takes. Queen takes pawn. He let him have it. And now the other rook comes into play. Now you're looking at mate here. Looking at rook checks. The only way to stop it is for this rook to come back, because if you play rook takes is going to be mate. So you have to move the other rook, either double it up, and right now it's almost 1.5 pawn advantage for white. But the attack is on. He's on his heels. It's going to take what they call only moves. In other words, the only move that can save you. And he finds a few of them. Rook to d8. Now, he can't take for the same reason. Rook takes check. He's screwed. And then when the bishop goes to block, the queen takes the rook, and you're up a rook, and it's over. So he has to bring back the bishop to g8. Only move. Only move. He could have went c4. That stops the rook from coming up and over, what they call a rover. Because the pawn will be here and just take. That's the only other decent move. Or take the bishop, and you can't do that. So he finds that move there. Now, this is where it's the most dangerous. When you're playing and you have somebody and you have them by the throat. There's an old saying is, the hardest game to win is a one game. And this is complicated. And your adrenaline's flowing. You're concentrating your ass off. It's a big deal to make it to the candidates. Now, Carl acts like, well, it's just another tournament. And it kind of is, but being in the candidates is very prestigious. It gives you a shot. It's like being in the playoffs. Those of you that follow football or baseball, hockey for that matter, is your team gets in the playoffs. And the winner of the playoffs, of course, goes to the Super Bowl or the World Series or the Stanley Cup or whatever your sport is. So their candidates is basically the playoffs. You qualify to get in the playoffs, and then you play for the championship. In this case, if you win the candidates, you play for the world championship. So this is a big deal. Even though Carl was a little lackadaisical about it, it is a big deal. Now, this is where I think Carl missteps. The computer likes queen to g6, and I agree, because you're threatening mate. But when he takes, what do? You're kind of stuck. Now it's even again. Rook takes. What do? So let's go back. So Carl decided the second best move is queen to h4. And I like the discovery. There's a couple of things. One, discover check on the king wins the black queen. That's a threat. So you've got to handle, this is what happens. You start getting threat after threat after threat. So he says, you know what? I don't mind the discovery. I'm going to grab this pawn. And queen takes c2. And also, if you see, the queen can come back for defense if necessary. Or if the bishop comes here, the queen can guard that bishop and try to protect the king. So Carl makes the best move. We'll kind of run a d3. He's going to bring it over. What's the only move that could really save? Bishop f7 is good. But the only really move that can save him is bishop h7. And of course, Caruana finds it. Now, we're looking at the computer off screen. It's almost a 2-point advantage for white, even though the material is technically even. And this is a point in a game like this where you just get tunnel vision. It's so easy to think you're making the right move and you make the wrong move. It's just so complicated, especially around the attacking end. The defending end is maybe a little easier because you're finding only moves to save yourself. So what do? He just went bishop h7. The computer calls for a rook on 3 to d7. That's exactly what a Carl did. Now, very rarely will you see this. You'll see this little like post-it stamp with 4 rooks together. That very, very rarely happens. It's kind of cool looking, actually. So what do? Second best move is rook takes d7 for black. But of course, Caruana is a world-class player. He finds g5. Now this is what Carl said he didn't see. And that's what I meant. Sometimes you have this tunnel vision. And this is where I think a Carl miscues. He plays queen to g3, and almost all of his advantage is gone. Now it's less than a pawn. What the computer likes, and I agree, is bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. It's and then the black rook checks, king comes up. And that's the way the computer wanted to go, and I agree. Because what is black going to do? He's got to come back to g6. And then queen just takes the pawn. I mean, it's just as horrendous for black. And that's what a Carl missed. And he's a world-class player. After g5, a Carl makes this misstep that almost, when I say throws the game, doesn't lose it, but looks like it's going to draw, and he plays queen to g3. So what does Caruana do? He doesn't play any of the computer moves, which is really interesting, and he's a world-class player. Rook takes d7 is the computer's move, which puts it at almost even. Takes this way. But he doesn't. He doesn't do that. And this is where the pressure gets you now. They're on move 28. And Caruana is running out of time. And Carl is built up a lot of time and in reserve, and he's using it up trying to find the right moves. And this is where the pressure gets to you. Now remember, Caruana automatically qualifies for the candidates, but you don't want to lose. These guys very rarely lose at all. So he goes queen to b1 check, which puts a Carl a little bit back in the driver's seat. Now it's over a 2-point advantage for white. So what do? What do? Well, pretty much the only move you can make. You move the king up. Okay, that keeps your advantage. You could have blocked with a rook, but you didn't. So queen f5. The queen comes back in defense. Now it's close to a 3-point advantage for white. He's back in the driver's seat again. And a rook takes is a computer move. And then, of course, rook takes the other way. And then queen to c7, threatening the rook. So Caruana checks. Get the queens off the board, even if it costs them a pawn. Pawn. Bishop checks first. King g8. Bishop takes that pawn because the other pawn is doomed. Now you see opposite color bishops. That's what they call opposite color bishops for those of you guys who don't play. these bishops could never attack each other. So it's more towards draw material, but black is so lost. Let's just see the rest of the game. Bishop to b1 just to get him out of the way. Rook checks. King to f8. Bishop takes. Now he's just simplifying the position. And we're on move 36. We haven't even reached the time control yet. The time control is at move 40 where you get additional time. Bishop g5 going after the pawn. Of course, he's going to lose it anyway, so he pushes it, figuring if he takes it, it double his pawns. But, of course, Carl isn't stupid. He goes g4, and then c4, king to g3, bishop b4, and bishop to d2. There's no way. It's just a matter of Caruana doesn't even insult Carl at this point. He can't move this pawn. He can't move it here because bishop will take. He can't move it here. What's the point? So he says, the heck with it. And as a true sportsman, he could have made him work this out, maybe 10, 15 more moves, but it's already gone. He's lost. What happens is you're going to get the king going to come up with the help of this bishop, and these pawns will start moving down the board, and there's nothing that black can do. Absolutely nothing. So that's where Fabiano Caruana threw in the towel. I thought it was a great game. Even though Carl messed up there a little bit on when he went queen to g3 on move 28, I still think he played a hell of a game. And this is the next to the last round, round 9. Tomorrow is round 10. On Sunday is being played in the Isle of Man. If you want to see any of the live replays, there's several hours long as they go through. There's over 150 players playing, so they try to do the top boards of the really interesting games. Check out Chess24's YouTube channel. They have the archives. If you look under their channel, look under live, you'll find it. Also, FIDE Chess. That's FIDE Chess. They also have that as well with different commentators. They're both equally good. I like them both. So there it is. I consider the game of the tournament. It's the top 2 players. So now Carl Nakamura is tied for a 3-way tie for first with one more round to go. Can Carl win tomorrow? Or the other 2 lose and Carl draws? And he will be in the candidates. And that's a big deal. That's going to be played in Toronto. I'm not sure when. I don't live that far from Toronto. I wish I had the money and the time to go to Toronto to see the candidates, but unfortunately I can't. I live in upstate New York, which isn't that far. But anyway, folks, it was a hell of a game. I'm a bigger Carl fan, as you can tell, and he played a heck of a game. I think he caught Caruana off guard in the opening with the 4 knights. And once you make one little mistake, these guys are on you. Like white on rice, as they say. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed the game. Like I said, if you want to see any of the other games or commentary, go to Chess24 or FIDE Chess's YouTube channel and look under the live tab to see it. And until next time, God bless, goodbye, and good luck.